It didn't begin with a spin. It began with a signal, an almost mechanical pulse. With every pass, it whispered the same impossible message to the instruments watching from Earth. I am not what you think I am. The shift didn't come from the object itself, but from the people who saw it. On August 6th at 2:11 GMT, ground-based observatories triggered an emergency alert. The spectral data arriving from telescopes around the world couldn't be dismissed. CO2 emissions off the charts, metallic spikes in the readings, and a velocity curve that defied gravitational law. That's when it happened. The emergency override. A protocol so rare it interrupts every scheduled observation and forces the James Webb Space Telescope to abandon its mission and focus on a single anomaly, a move that drains fuel, costs time, risks billions, and has never been executed for an interstellar object. Yet within minutes, the override raced through committees and landed on the desk of the project scientist. The approval had to be unanimous. It was. At 2:17 GMT, Webb's instruments recalibrated and locked onto 3I/Atlas. The first packets of data that came down were not just strange, they were historic. Instead of a comet's icy signature, Webb saw chemistry so volatile, so deliberate, it stripped away every assumption. The spectra revealed an extreme carbon fingerprint and something even more impossible. Nickel everywhere, iron nowhere. In every meteorite, every asteroid, iron and nickel are inseparable. They're born together in the same stellar explosions, bound by physics. But not here. Every check confirmed it. Iron had vanished. Nickel burned across the spectrum like a floodlight, its wavelengths stacking clean above the noise. The only known way to achieve such separation requires advanced chemistry, industrial pressures, deliberate engineering. Scientists whispered one possibility: nickel carbonyl, a volatile compound that vaporizes under controlled conditions. But even that didn't explain the absence of iron. The result was a spectral fingerprint unlike anything natural. Not Oumuamua, not Borisov, nothing in any catalog. It was chemical precision. And then, the past intruded on the present. Historians pointed to artifacts, ancient blades and beads forged with impossible nickel content, metals from heaven buried with pharaohs, recorded in Babylonian tablets, revered as omens. King Tut's dagger contained 11% nickel, a match to meteoritic iron no ancient forge could create. Across cultures, stories of metal from the sky echoed. And now, in 2025, Webb had captured the same impossible signature in the heavens again. The mystery deepened. As scientists analyzed the object's emissions, a Caltech researcher noticed something buried in the data: a faint but rhythmic electromagnetic pulse. Too precise to be random, too faint to be communication. When converted into sound, it revealed a haunting beat: prime numbers, Fibonacci ratios, geometric harmonics, structures that echoed DNA, crystal growth, even the mathematics of ancient architecture. Not a message, but a fingerprint. And if we could hear it, who else could? Within days, geophysicists recorded something alarming. Across Antarctica, Argentina, and Western Australia, ultra-low frequency pulses resonated from within the Earth itself, timed perfectly to 3I/Atlas's light curve. The planet was answering, not loudly, but rhythmically, like a tuning fork catching a forgotten song. If Earth was resonating, perhaps it had heard this signal before. Perhaps something dormant had just remembered. Trajectory models revealed the object wasn't drifting, it was navigating. It dodged gravitational wells with surgical precision, threading the solar system like a spacecraft on a pre-programmed mission. Its path matched engineered flight paths with over 92% accuracy. And forward projection placed it on a corridor beyond Saturn, rumored by some to be a gateway point into the outer heliopause. It wasn't random. It was leaving, with intent.
And then,
just as Webb prepared for another scan, it stopped. The emissions, the spectral lines, the rhythmic pulse, all gone. Within 11 hours, Atlas went dark. Not obscured, not out of range, it shut down. Like a machine completing its protocol. Every telescope confirmed it. Silence fell, deliberate and chilling. But the silence didn't last. Radar tracking showed a subtle but undeniable course change. Instead of slingshotting out of the solar system, Atlas shifted inward, toward a stable gravitational corridor between Earth and Venus, a region known for satellite interference. No natural body does this. No comet reroutes after going dark, unless it was never meant to leave, but to stay. Meanwhile, at MIT, an AI combed through Webb's spectroscopic data, not for elements, but for structure. What it found was terrifying. The nickel and CO2 emissions plotted over time and formed a multi-dimensional helix. Not random gas, but a coded geometry. When compared to early RNA strands, the parallels were undeniable. Ratios, folds, recursions. Not life itself, but a template. A chemical code, waiting for an environment to take root. What if Atlas wasn't a comet? What if it was a seed? Then came the lunar anomaly. Radar pings aimed at Atlas bounced back not from deep space, but from the far side of the moon. The echoes arrived early, distorted, carrying the same pulse signatures Atlas had emitted. Historical archives revealed that during Oumuamua's passage in 2017, faint modulations had been detected at the exact same lunar coordinates. Something beneath the moon had responded before, and now it was responding again. Weeks later, Webb resumed its deep field mission, but anomalies appeared everywhere. Quasars and exoplanets flickered with faint, rhythmic dimming. When synchronized, the pattern was unmistakable. 7 pulses, silence, 7 more. A relay, a chain, a countdown. Atlas hadn't just been broadcasting, it had been executing a sequence, a protocol resonating through planets, the moon, even the galaxy itself. And the realization set in, this wasn't our first encounter. It wasn't communication, it was recalibration. What if Atlas wasn't designed to talk to us at all? What if it came to awaken something else? To test a connection, to deliver a code and confirm it still works. And once it did, it simply went silent, blending back into the void, into places we no longer look. NASA at first dismissed the rerouting as a glitch, an observational error. But when 3 of the most powerful deep space radar facilities on Earth, Goldstone, Arecibo, and China's Fast Array, all confirmed the same impossible change, everything shifted. Because no comet simply corrects its course after going dark. No natural object navigates into a blind spot with such surgical precision, and certainly nothing non-intelligent performs a maneuver like this with intent. Unless, of course, it was never leaving at all, unless it came to stay. While engineers and astronomers scrambled to reestablish optical contact with Three-Eyed Atlas, a different kind of discovery was unfolding inside a lab at MIT. There, a neuronet AI system had been fed terabytes of spectroscopic data from Webb and Gemini, not to detect elements, but to search for structure. And it found one. The emission pattern of nickel and carbon dioxide, mapped over time and corrected for rotational variance, formed a twisting, multi-dimensional helix, an intricate spiral hidden inside the time series emissions. At first, it looked meaningless, but when overlaid with the blueprints of earliest molecular architectures,
a disturbing resemblance emerged. Early RNA-like strands, not identical, but ratios, folds, recursions so precise that molecular biologists fell silent. What if Three-Eyed Atlas wasn't just expelling gas? What if it was releasing coded scaffolding? Not life, not cells, but a template, a pre-biological seed, a broadcast not in sound, but in chemistry. A message frozen in time, like DNA and amber, waiting for the right environment to take root. And what if Earth or Mars or some pre-selected point in our solar system had already been prepared to receive it? Then came the radar ping experiment, a routine deep space tracking test. But this time, the echo didn't come from the object, it came from somewhere else, the far side of the moon.
The signal returned 0.23 seconds too early and carried spectral artifacts that didn't match the outgoing waveform. Surface irregularities? Maybe. Until it happened again. And again. 3 consecutive attempts, 3 modulated returns, and the timing of those modulations matched the pulses from Three-Eye Atlas recorded weeks before. That's when old lunar archives were pulled. During the passage of Oumuamua in 2017, faint modulations had been recorded at the very same coordinates. The pattern had returned. This was no comet visiting our solar system. This was the solar system answering something it recognized. And with the moon now echoing back alien frequencies, a new possibility emerged. Three-Eye Atlas wasn't an intruder, it was a trigger. And something long buried beneath the lunar crust had just been activated. 2 weeks after Three-Eye Atlas's blackout, the James Webb Telescope quietly resumed its deep field observations. But something was different. Across several targets, distant quasars, exoplanets, Webb detected faint rhythmic dimming, low-frequency flux, not in the stars themselves, but in the interstellar medium between them. When synchronized, the anomalies formed a repeating series. 7 pulses, silence, 7 pulses again. And as scientists traced these events across galactic coordinates, they saw something chilling. Each line of sight passed through a corridor aligned with Three-Eye Atlas's trajectory. Implication? Three-Eye Atlas wasn't just emitting something, it was part of a relay, a chain, a beacon, or worse, a countdown, and it had already begun ticking. Whether this was a warning or an activation, no one could say. But one thing became clear, the event was no longer local. The ripple had gone galactic. And here we stand, at the edge of something we can't see, hearing the echoes of a protocol we never triggered. For generations, we believed silence meant safety, that emptiness meant absence. But now we know better. James Webb didn't just detect a strange object, it recorded the execution of a program. A trajectory too clean, a chemistry too precise, a frequency too rhythmic. Three-Eye Atlas wasn't broadcasting a message, it was running a sequence that bent gravity, a sequence that echoed from the moon, a sequence that sent electromagnetic tremors into the crust of our own planet. And now we face an unspoken truth, a truth slipping through the cracks of official reports and whispering its way into late-night labs. This was not our first contact. It may not even be contact at all, because this feels less like communication and more like recalibration. What if Three-Eye Atlas wasn't designed to speak with us, but to awaken something else? What if it came not to explore, but to deliver a code, test a link, confirm a dormant connection still works? And once it did, it simply stopped. Not leaving, not gone, but folded into the silence, into the system, into the places we no longer look. And that's the final revelation and the source of awe. Not that we saw something alive, but that we witnessed the machinery of something far older, finishing a task we cannot comprehend. And now whatever comes next has already been set into motion.
Long before we built our first telescope, long before our first signals left Earth, a program older than our species began its countdown. And today, for the first time, we can feel its rhythm, echoing not just through space, but through the very story of life itself. Stay tuned and follow the journey into the unknown at SpaceFast TV. The final horror isn't that we discovered something alive, it's that we witnessed machinery older than our species complete a task we cannot comprehend. And now whatever happens next was set into motion long before we opened our eyes to the sky. Sometimes the scariest discoveries aren't the ones we make. They're the ones that we're waiting for us to finally notice.